normally I just get to be the MC for this event, but I've also been asked to speak as well. So normally I would stand down and introduce you to the first person. So I'd like to introduce you to Richard Reed. He's the founder, one of, Innocent Drinks, and he's going to talk to you about what has he and his friends learnt from having set Innocent up from scratch, not knowing anything about the industry, not really having any experience in setting a business before, and from the get-go having to take on some of the world's biggest companies, because from the beginning we were fighting up against the Coca-Colas, the Pepsis, the Unilevers and the Danons, and we were three guys with no clue and no cash, and so we had to find a way to sort of zig and when everyone else was zagging. And I've put together the 5 things that we found to be true of where the success of Innocent came from. And I guess these thoughts are essentially a combination of lessons that we learned from doing things wrong and screwing up, and then there are also some things that brighter people than us told us that we then put into play. And I think they are the drivers of where the principal amount of success of Innocent came from. So first thing that we found to be true, and I think it is true, it's certainly true of a business, I think it's true of any form of organizing human beings. Those that are marshaled around having a clear sense of vision, a clear sense of purpose, it brings in a massive amount of invisible energy and direction to that organization. It is one of those things that costs nothing and creates so much value. And I would urge anyone who was thinking about setting up a business, is running a business, to just, in those downtimes, in those spare evenings and weekends, think about why are you doing it? What's the raison d'etre? Encapsulating the spirit of why you do what you do. It's not about the money, is it? I mean, let's face it, we want to get rich from doing it, but that isn't the motivation. That's not the reason why your entity exists. Every single person's business has a unique contribution to make to society, and it's just about working out what is that and what's most important. I learned this from, actually, not personally because he's dead, but Henry Ford of Ford Motor Cars always used to talk about his motivation for setting up Ford Motor Cars was he believed in the principle of personal freedom of movement. He said, I want man to be able to go wherever he goddamn wants, whenever he goddamn wants. And that was the thing that made him strive and set up that motor car company. Fast forward 100 years, Google, which by the way is a business that I'm obsessed with because they set up in exactly the same week of the same month of the same year as us. And over the same period of time that Innocent grew to 200 million, they grew to 80 billion. So you could say they're winning in some ways, but it's not over yet. But they have one sentence which encapsulates the reason why that business exists. They said that Google exists to organize the world's information and make it universally available. To organize the world's information and make it universally available. That one sentence, it explains where the motivation comes from, it explains why they do what they do, it explains why they developed Google Earth, why they bought YouTube, to organize the world's information, make it universally available. And there's something so powerful about having a sense of purpose. The British rowing team put down their success through essentially driving every single decision they ever made against one single question. Will it make the boat go faster? Every decision they made on and off the water, in and out the boathouse, themselves personally, professionally, with their families, everything came down to that one question. So the more you understand what it is that you're here to do, the more you can marshal your resources behind delivering it. Innocent has always been about stopping this happening, right? Says it from the wall, we exist to help people live well and die old. That is the purpose of Innocent. That's why we make fresh, healthy food and drink. That's why we give 10% of profits to charity. We are trying to be in the net positive side of business, making sure that we make things that are healthy and good for people. And I love the idea of having a simple, clear purpose. Once you know what it is that you're there to do, then you can make sure that every decision supports that and informs everything you do. This is my favorite picture. It's a real photograph of a head office in America that makes baskets. And you look at that and you think, right, so that really is a business that understands what it's here to do. And you can imagine, can't you, if you're a hungover employee walking in on a Monday morning thinking, what am I supposed to do today? And you look at that and you go, oh yeah, make baskets. So there's a beauty that comes from the simplicity of understanding what it is that you're here to do, and then make sure everything marshals behind that. Unlike this business that really wasn't sort of keeping the same sort of principle of keeping everything all aligned with itself. Second thing that we found to be true, it's about people, right? I mean, you're setting up a business, it is only people. That is what the business will be. It is a business in definition is essentially just a community of human beings. So then it becomes an exercise in psychology, identifying what are the needs that you have of that business and then finding people who've got the brains and the skills and the motivations to deliver them. It really is the most important thing to get right, recruitment. Google, again, as I said, I'm obsessed with them. They talk about we only recruit A types because A types go on to recruit A types, whereas B types go on to recruit C types, and you start a long descent into averageness. So if you want to have a great business, you've got to have a great team. A great team is a great business. You can't have one without the other. And so it is about not just taking who's available, it's about being incredibly picky and choosy and not giving people the benefit of the doubt at the interview stage. Trying to get a job at Innocent, as everyone that works in Innocent will testify, is a bit of a bloody nightmare. You have to go through so many different hoops, but it's important to us because that is what the business is, and we've got to make sure we've got the very best talent on board. We look for people that have got this, right? We try and find people with the yes gene inside their heads. In a world of people saying no, we try and find people that are always saying yes. It's the entrepreneurial vibe. It's what you guys will have in your hearts here this evening. It's what you're certainly going to hear from people here. It's about the dogged persistence to keep on going, and we need that amongst the team at Innocent. And this is the tough bit. You've also then got to let people go if they're not contributing. I don't mean if they've made a mistake. If they've made a mistake and it's honest and they've fessed up, then that's okay. That's a learning experience, so that is totally okay. But if they're willfully not contributing and they're not adding, then you're going to have to ask them to leave. Again, that was a mistake we made at Innocent. For the first 2 years, we didn't let a single person go because we thought if we did that, that's not ethical, and we're trying to be an ethical business. So we had a 100% retention rate, and it's only because I went and heard this guy speak. It's called Dan Walker. He's the head of talent at Apple Computers at the time. He was speaking at a business conference. Big, macho American guy, sat on a stool, legs wide open, going, "You've got to get rid of the crap people. Get rid of the crap people. Want a great company? Get rid of the crap people." And because this is Britain, we're all like amazed. This is so impolite, and how could he say such a terrible thing? And this very sweet woman put her hand up and said, "But what am I supposed to do if I don't have anyone to replace the so-called crap person?" And he just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Honey, at the end of the day, I'd rather have a hole than an asshole." Now, I'm not advocating that language, and we don't say that at Innocent, because then you end up in tribunals and all the rest of it, but there is a fundamental truth, right? If you're serious, which I suspect you are, if you're serious about building a brilliant business, then don't gloss over the fact that you can't do it without great people, and you can't have people that are passengers, because then that disengages the great people. You've got to make sure that you're looking after the brilliant talent by making sure no one's just there having a free ride. Third thing, I guess it's one of the ethics of, or the principles tonight, right? The most important thing of anything is to get it started. There's that sort of, I don't know the exact phrase, but there's something about once you commit to something, the universe will provide for you in ways that you could never imagine. That sounds a bit like sort of hippie nonsense, but I think it's also totally true. The most important thing is to get started, and it doesn't matter what scale. My sister tomorrow is starting her first business from a market stall. That's where we started. We started from a market stall. Marks and Spencer started from a market stall. The scale of it does not matter. It's starting is what matters. And the fact that you can start small, that's brilliant, because then you risk less. It doesn't matter. And if it goes wrong, then so what? You're going to learn. It's a cool experience. You'll have a great story to tell your mates in the future. Get started. We started by taking £500 worth of fruit, crushing it into our favorite smoothie recipe that we made at home in our shared kitchen in West London, went along to a music festival, set up a market stall, sold the bottles of smoothies from it. This is when we had our regular jobs at the time, and put a big sign above the stall that said, "Should we give up our jobs to make these smoothies?" Put a bin that had yes on the front and a bin that said no, and asked people to buy the bottles, drink the smoothie, and then vote with our empties afterwards. And as a group of 3 friends, we made a commitment. If the yes bin is full at the end of the weekend, we'll go in the next day and resign. And it was, so we did. I shouldn't say this, but it's the only time I get to say this because my mum's in the room, but there was a few in the no bin which our parents had put there to try and persuade us out of giving up our jobs. I'm not saying it was mum, but some of them did. But that got it started, right? And that's the most important thing. If you've got an idea, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let perfection be the enemy of doing something good, right? If it's good, it's good. Do it. Have a go. You'll learn. Get it out there. And it's amazing the scale of things, right? This is my favorite example of Innocent about something that's small can become big. Has anyone heard of the Big Knit? So there's this crazy thing where we get volunteers to knit little woolen hats. Then they get put on the bottles in winter, and then for every time a bottle is sold with a little woolen hat on, 25p goes to Age Concern. Now the guy that came up with it, this guy called New Adam, came up with the idea. He worked at Innocent. I said, "Look, that's bonkers, mate. It's not going to work. You're going to have to get like a factory in China to make those little hats." And he said, no, I think I can get volunteers to do it, and you've just got to commit to the money. And I said, "Oh, well, no problem, mate, because you're not going to get any hats knitted." That first year, you got 3,000 hats knitted. The second year, 20,000 hats. The third year, 80,000 hats. Last year, we had 1.6 million hats, all hand-knitted by volunteers all across the world. So it just shows, right, from 3,000 to 1.6 million, from a market stall to a big business, starting small is a brilliant way to start and get started. And then the second thing is, of course, don't stop. I think those are the only two real fundamental commonalities between anyone that's successful. They started and then they didn't stop. Fourth thing we found to be true is there is no right way, right? So I'm stood up here talking quite confidently, talking a bit quickly because I'm running out of time, and it makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I don't really. All I can say is what happened to us. And that doesn't mean it's right, or it doesn't mean anything that we might have just got lucky and things transpired in the right way. So don't feel that there's a way to do it and you're wrong if you do it a different way. The only right way is the way that's right for you. There is no universal right way. Every business is different, every human situation is different. Make it the way you want it to be. That's one of the beautiful things about setting up a business, especially from scratch. You can make it the way you want it to be. It's a clean sheet of paper. So do it with your tone, do it with your values, do it with your idiosyncrasies, your rituals. It's your thing. That's the beauty of it. It's your thing. No one gets you to tell you how to do your business. For us, it was really important that we put dumb jokes on our packaging. I don't know why, but we just liked the warmth and the humanity of it. You would put enjoy by rather than use by. We got into trouble sometimes. I don't know if anyone's seen that in our ingredients panel. We sometimes put stupid jokes in the ingredients. Does anyone ever clock that? I remember 18 months in, I'd done this strawberry banana smoothie label, and in the ingredients are written 6 strawberries, 2 bananas, half an orange, and 2 plump nuns. Crap joke, right? I mean, it doesn't even make sense, but we printed it and forgot about it. 10 days later, I got a call from a lady called Denise at Trading Standards in Kensington and Chelsea. And she goes, Mr. Reed, you know, we've had a complaint about this plump nuns thing written on your label. And I said, oh, well, I'm terribly sorry. It's just our stupid sense of humor. But obviously no one's going to take it seriously. And she said, well, we do. We're launching a formal inquiry. And I remember thinking at the time, crikey, 2 thoughts actually. Crikey, that sounds really serious. But also just really curious to see where this ends up. And where it ended up was, after me having to submit in writing my defense and that being deemed not good enough, I had to go to a formal hearing. And I don't think it was technically a court of law, but there was a big wooden bench, and behind it 3 people were sat. And in the middle, the guy was wearing a black gown. And in front of him, there was a woman with a stenograph machine typing up everything I said. And Denise was there making the case for the prosecution. I then had to sort of report to the board and make my case for the defense. And the guy in the middle in the gown said he was going to retire, consult with his colleagues, and write to me with his formal ruling. And about 14 days later, I got this letter. It was the favorite letter I've ever received in business. And it started with, Dear Mr. Reed, you must either take off the reference to plump nuns or start putting them in your fruit juice. Which is great when you get a business like that. So I'm not advocating that, but we were doing it in our style, in our way. It made it more fun, and hopefully it created a memory and a connection with the consumers. And you know, the van's covered in grass and daisies, no reason other that's the way that we wanted to do it. It helped us stand out. And also, on a more serious side, we've been able to build this business from scratch with, in the center of it, some big, immovable values and principles, specifically about leaving things better than we find them. And that's why we only make healthy food. That's why we source it ethically. That's why we push forward for better recycled and more environmentally friendly packaging. It's why we have the toughest standards in the industry for water and landfill and electricity and carbon usage, and it's why we give 10% of profits to charity, you know, because it's our business and we can do. And that's an amazing thing. It's your business. You can do what you like with it. So for us, it's important we give 10% of profits to charity to fund different projects across the world. That might not be what's important to you. So don't do that. Do what's important to you. It's your thing. Do it your way. And ignore the people. There's so many people that just because someone's speaking confidently, it doesn't mean they're right. Just because you've lost an argument, it doesn't mean that you were wrong. Whether they're right or wrong comes down to facts and evidence and logic, not just confidence and whether they've got a better suit on than you. So don't feel bullied into doing something that you don't feel is right for your business. And the 5th thing that we found to be true is just being open, communicate, ask questions. It started with the yes and no bins. It says it on the side, you know, if you're bored, then pop round to Fruit Towers. You can try it out on an average day. We'll have 1 or 2 groups of people turning up unannounced, and there's 50 people here that are volunteer tour guides that show people around, and I love the fact it keeps the most important people, which is our consumers, right in the heart of our office. So keep yourself open, ask the questions, Also, having someone walk around the building means we've got to be honest. So it means when we talk about banana phone, it has to be a big plastic yellow banana phone. The fact that you guys here is brilliant, I think, because you're getting to see it. And you can tell us if there's things that are wrong or aren't quite what you're expecting, or tell us the things that are good so we can do more of them. We're all about remaining open and honest. This is a chill-out area. In the last one, we do a thing called a grown-up meeting on a Saturday morning, getting people, the most important people to us, our consumers, into the business, asking them what we should do, which products we should launch, which charities we should support, which advertising campaigns we should develop. Because if you're open to it, and if you ask for it, then people are going to give you that wonderful insight, which is what they find most important, what they value most in your business. And that, of course, is another thing that comes from success, understanding what's most important to your consumer, and then really focusing on delivering that better than the competition does. And by the way, I have a slightly sort of fun endpoint. And my final slide is my favorite ever example of some consumer feedback. It wasn't about Innocent. I was sent this. It was actually a letter written by an 8-year-old girl who was on a Qantas flight to Australia and wrote this letter and asked for it to be handed into the pilot. And I think for me, it quintessentially gives a great example of how consumers, if you are open to it, will tell you what it is that's most important to them. And as consumers do, they sort of use the language that leaves it on no uncertain terms. I'll read it out in case you can't see. Dear Captain, my name is Nicola. I'm 8 years old. This is my first flight, but I'm not scared. I like to watch the clouds go by. My mum says the crew is nice. I think your plane is good. Thanks for a nice flight. Don't fuck up the landing. Terrible language for an 8-year-old, but a fundamental truth there. So anyway, those are some of the things that we think have helped Innocent get to where we are today. Having a sense of purpose, really focusing on getting the best people in there, working the details, starting small and nourishing new ideas coming through, and being really open and keeping the consumer at the heart of the business.